Next we have up Sister Kayelin Tiggs. And she is going to be talking about, and I would introduce, she's a neuroscientist, she's a Miss America, Miss Universe, she's the second self of God. She is going to be talking about a very important subject because, as we know, black women are the fastest growing population in the prison industrial complex. So she's going to be talking about women care in the prison industrial complex. I know you just told me and I messed it up, but so please give her a warm round of applause and we'll go ahead and switch out the mics.
You need a mic? You need a mic?
Yeah. Sorry, just a moment. If Taylor can hold it, I can hold it. Beautiful job, Taylor.
Hi. Sorry I'm soft-spoken, and I also have a speech impediment, so if I slur my words, forgive me. My name's Latisha, and this lovely woman who has 1,001 different labels, like, she's amazing. But I want to tell you a story before we get into what we're talking about. So when I was like 22 years old, I had a roommate, and we were in this room, and somehow we got locked in. And she had started her period. And as women, especially as black women, we are taught from a very young age that what happens to our body is natural. Like you whisper it in class. You don't up front say, hey, do you have a tampon or a pad? You have to whisper it. If you drop it on the ground, somehow we're shamed for it. Like, oh my God, this thing that happens to every woman on the planet is happening to you. And so she needed to get out of her room because she had blood on herself, because we didn't have any pads or tampons. Well, she tried to get somebody to come to the door. Nobody was coming. She continued to bleed on herself, and it had been like 3 to 4 hours. Now she's just sitting there, sitting in her own shame, because that's what we're taught, that it's shame. This thing that happens to us naturally is shameful, and now she's sitting in it. So she can't wash her underwear in the sink because she has Hep C. She can't affect me, and she can't take care of herself without endangering me. Well, now we're both trying to get their attention. Open the door. Like, she needs to go shower. She needs to put her stuff in the wash machine because now she's at risk and so am I. Well, we finally got somebody to come to the door. That person was a CO. That person told her to wash her underwear in the sink. She can't. I wash my dishes in the sink. I brush my teeth in the sink. I wash my hands. I do everything I have to do in the sink. She can't do that. Well, you can just wait till rec time. Our rec time wasn't until 8. This happened at 1 in the afternoon. It was 6 o'clock when somebody finally came. She banged on the door after he walked away. Well, then the lieutenant comes up, made some gesture about using the toilet to wash her underwear. Still haven't gave us any pads or tampons or anything to rectify the situation that is happening to her. Well, they finally gave her it when they took her to the hole for causing a disturbance. By the way, something that people don't know, in prisons, they're allowed to not let us bathe. So, when I was locked up, by the way, in Dayton Correctional Institution. So she gets taken to the hole. This has also happened to me, but fortunately, I don't have Hep C. Doesn't make her less than a person at all. But to feel that shame and so vile in her own self, they took her to the hole. And it was the weekend. You can't shower on the weekend. You have to sit in your room 7 days, Saturday and Sunday, and don't let it be a holiday. She didn't shower until Monday. They had to house her by herself because she put up the fact that she was a health risk at this time. This system that continues to grow, that was built for people like us to be to be put in a box, a pipeline from the school to the prison. And it is so relevant now that black women especially get overlooked. And like he said, we're filling up prisons. We're filling up prisons like a candy store. And yet people are not seeing us. People are forgetting about us, because what happens in America, we lock up our problems so we can ignore them. And then they turn us into the problems, and then they ignore us. Because at the end of the day, who cares about women's care?
I got a mic. Thank you so much.
She does.
So it's stories like these that continue to inspire me and continue my work moving forward. I had the opportunity to speak to almost 100 women about their experiences while being incarcerated here in Ohio. And those women are coming forward and they're telling me that they are being denied their feminine hygiene products, and they're being denied quality care while being incarcerated. And one of the issues that I also noticed while doing research on this is that there's absolutely no legislation put in place that protects our women from the coercion, the shame, the embarrassment, everything that you can experience from having a period and from our menstrual cycles being stigmatized. There's nothing put in place. So I've heard stories about women who are locked up, but when they're on their cycles, they make the decision not to eat because they're on their menstrual cycle and they don't know if they'll be given a product. I've heard stories about women who have been sexually coerced just for a tampon or a pad. I've heard stories about women who have been beaten up in their cells because their roommate became so desperate for a pad and wanted to take one of theirs. I've heard stories, right, Latisha? I've heard stories about women's pads falling off during rec, and now they have this embarrassment and this shame. And I learned something about embarrassment. So there's a difference between, it's okay. There's a difference between embarrassment and humiliation. Embarrassment is something that can be self-imposed, correct? I can fall off of the stage and feel embarrassed. Humiliation is when someone else and someone else's ideas and someone else's ideologies create negative feelings about yourself, can cause someone to create negative feelings about themselves. So now we're dealing with humiliation, which is illegal. So one thing that I noticed while advocating for this is that people believe that those who are incarcerated come to prison to be punished. No. The act of being physically incarcerated is the punishment, and our black women are experiencing that at a higher rate than any other group of people in the country. Now, there are so many people who I've spoken to about this issue, and they have no idea. Yet, our black women are being treated like this. Thousands, millions across the country. And a lot of people think that this is not an American issue. Even us black people sometimes develop a mindset of American exceptionalism where we feel that certain things don't apply to us. Most people think that the ability to access feminine hygiene products is not an American problem. That's because we all have the ability to go out and get what we need. However, there are thousands of women, thousands of girls that cannot access their feminine hygiene products. And when we lock women up, we're exacerbating what is called period poverty. Period poverty is the inability to access feminine hygiene products due to financial constraints. And this is being perpetuated amongst our black women. And there's so many things that can occur because a woman doesn't have the things that she needs to manage her cycle. And this is, for me, not just an issue of access. It represents a power imbalance that we are seeing. So upon entering into the prison system, there's an entire mental shift that has occurred. This mental shift keeps all of the incumbents of the prison system basically allowing and validating this maltreatment of our women. And also, because of the stigmatization of criminals, right? And criminalization of those who serve time, we allow this to go on. There are so many people who go into the system and are forgotten. Yes, and when this happens, period poverty, mental health, the wellness that Ms. Taylor just talked about, all of that goes out of the window, but nobody ever has the conversation in this context. We now have a power imbalance where women are having to choose between their basic human needs and a tampon. Something that is so simple. It has become symbolic of a power imbalance in which women they no longer have their dignity. And so my message today is to just be aware, right? Be aware that this is an issue. Be aware that those who are locked up are not just physically locked up. They become mentally, spiritually, emotionally locked up. We never have this conversation in the context of those who are incarcerated. We talk about mass incarceration, however, we never talk about how it is worse for women because prisons are not designed for women's bodies. Imagine, all of you women listening, all of you women who are in the audience, imagining sitting in a cell, having a menstrual cycle, and everyone's had a menstrual cycle unless there's some physiological reason as to why you could not and cannot. Imagine having to sit in a room and change your products in front of I don't know how many other women, or having to ask male COs that have the power to abuse you and often abuse that power to abuse you for their product. Not only is this an issue, but it becomes a generational issue. We have so many women who are locked up who are separated from their children. And we know that the children of incarcerated mothers have higher risks of mental health problems, have higher risks of going into the system, and to have to be incarcerated themselves in the future. So while we're discussing this issue about women who are incarcerated, we also have to talk about everyone else who has to deal with this. So while she's not receiving her care, and this is a violation of human rights, by the way. Okay, so again, people think that those who are incarcerated are there to be punished. This is a violation of their human rights. If you lock up a group of people, you are responsible for providing the needs of those people. And with women, you cannot cut around healthcare needs. You cannot cut corners around healthcare needs.
No, you can't.
I've heard stories about women who are more vulnerable to violence, who are getting beat up, who come out of their cells with cancer, infections, other illnesses that they did not have while they were in there before entering. But the conditions in which they have to endure and the poor response is on all of us. We, the people, have the power to change this issue. I've started a petition, and I'm going to present it to Montgomery County Jail. I got to meet with members there, and they have confirmed that they have no policy put in place. I asked them, so what happens if there's a group of women who are on their menstrual cycle and they need product? They said they have what is called a common practice where they will walk around and provide just a handful of product, regardless of how many women are in the cell, what those women's needs are, and what, how heavy their cycles are and things like that. And I hate to be so crass, but this is what women, our black women, have to go through. And not to forget that we have children, black girls who are locked up, starting at the age of 10 years old, who have menstrual cycles. So there's this power imbalance that we're seeing. And when I spoke to Montgomery County Jail, they basically told me that there's nothing that they can do. However, they can implement a policy that protects women from coercion and provides the sanitation products that they need. So I just wanted to come and use my platform to bring awareness to this issue. Period poverty exists in your neighborhoods. Period poverty exists in our prisons, in our schools, and our Black women are dealing with this at higher rates than any other group of people.
Yes.
Over something so simple. Women are dying, getting infections, and becoming ill over something so simple. And we often neglect our women in our conversations when we talk about wellness because we require a little bit more. And our needs are a little bit more specific. And so this is an issue that I'm extremely passionate about because it's women like you. And when I read her testimony, there's something that you told me that I will never, ever forget. It was you who said, there's something inhumane about being locked away in a cell, sitting in your own blood, waiting for someone to care enough about you to slide you a feminine hygiene product. Do you remember even saying that?
Yeah,
These are the testimonies of hundreds of women who I've spoken to. This is the testimony of thousands of women. I've had so many women speak up and reach out for their support on this, and I need you guys' support. So if you're interested in signing my petition that I will present to Montgomery County Jail, my goal is to have them mandate a policy to implement things to govern this issue, to protect our women. Women are being abused and neglected, and it's all over something that's completely preventable. But it's also because of people like us who validate this treatment by standing around every day and not using our power and our influence to make a difference here.
So what you said about women's care. So my second year in prison, I was locked up for 6 years. I got out in 2018, September 4th. So next month will be my 3-year mark. There was a girl named Gabby. She was this heavy-set Black woman. She would go to the doctor for 6 months, back and forth. She would send a kite. When they finally decided to see her, every time she went, she said, I have this pain in my groin. And I remember seeing Gabby. She was our laundry aide. I could see her crying in her room at night. I could see her rocking back and forth. I could see, because Gabby was a big girl, and slowly she was losing weight. You know, Gabby was like, she went to a store, she was funny, she was everything that made being okay in prison just enough. And now we're seeing Gabby deteriorate, and she's going back and forth. And the doctors keep telling her, ibuprofen and water, because that's the remedy for everything in prison. Ibuprofen and water. Well, then finally, out of nowhere, 6 months later, the doctor that we had got fired because the doctor they hired was a veterinarian. They had a doctor who was a veterinarian working in the prison for 6 months. When Gabby finally saw a doctor and finally fought to see the gynecologist, they found out she had stage 2 ovarian cancer. And just to think what this could have been, Gabby was only 28. She found out she had cancer, ovarian cancer at 28. Because who cares about Black women? Who cares about women, right?
Well, there's so many more stories like that. And it's horrendous to hear, but just imagining experiencing it. And my final message, because Steve is telling us we gotta go, my final message is to imagine if this happened to you. Or maybe you know someone who is incarcerated. This is probably happening to them. So if you'd like to learn more about how you can help, if you would like to join me in this fight, just please come find me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Please, let's give it up for our sisters. Thank you very much. I mean, sisters, this is an important topic. This is an important topic. This is an important topic. We must, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, we must protect, respect, and elevate our Black women. We don't have a nation if we don't have the black woman. We don't have a nation if we don't have the family.